Fans, no fans, limited fans. How much difference is this making to the results in the rugby? It certainly makes for a worse atmosphere when there's no crowds. I think all of us have felt the pain of those fake crowd sounds, which are pretty horrendous. But how about the actual results in the games? That's what we're going to look at today. I've gone through the premiership numbers for the 2019-2020 season and also the start of this year's season for what were the results like with fans, without fans, and with limited fans. Likewise, the Champions Cup, the previous edition and the current edition, plus the Six Nations before lockdowns and the Autumn Nations Cup combined with the Six Nations when it finished off. And a quick mention of Super Rugby Aotearoa, but mostly the competitions when we've seen a clear divide between no fans and fans. So we'll see if there's any kind of correlation between having fans and teams getting successful results. I think there's actually more value maybe with the score lines than the actual winning percentages, but either way, we'll have a quick look. I should mention, these numbers are definitely not going to be only down to fans being in attendance or not. There's a load of factors as to why teams win or lose games. They could have had injuries. It could be a really strong team against a weak team. I know when the Premiership resumed, these guys were playing two games in a week, so they were having to rotate their kind of academy players and whatnot. There could be guys out with COVID cases, so they're having to play a B team. There's loads of factors, but just for a kind of broad look, let's see what the numbers show us. So for the Premiership, prior to lockdown, and I got all this data manually, so excuse me if there's any mistakes. I counted 78 pre-COVID fixtures, so full crowd in attendance. Home wins were 48, away wins 28, and 2 draws, meaning 61.5%. 61.5% home winning with fans. Makes sense. The home team should win more games than they lose. That is what our brain tells us should be true, and you would like to think the crowd cheering on the guys to make those tackles and to get those tries, to bust those tackles, get those clean breaks is going to be part of the reason for that. When the season resumed, and like I mentioned, it was a bit of a disrupted resumption. It wasn't just kind of standard play. But after it resumed, and I'm excluding the final, which is played at a neutral venue, and excluding any cancelled games where a default result was awarded, just the actual games played, we had 54 games and 25 home wins, 28 away wins, and a draw. So the away teams actually managed to get more results. So home winning percentage, 46.2%. Is that down to the fans alone? No. Is that maybe a factor? Maybe. Especially when you look at the score lines. Average score prior to COVID, 26-18. Home team 26, away team 18. No fans, average score 27-24. So the home team score is pretty much the same. But the away team are getting like an extra 6 points. Maybe having the fans cheer you is helpful to get up off the deck and make that one more tackle. I don't know. Since the Premiership resumed, though, maybe puts a little bit of doubt in my mind about the fans factor. There's 27 games being played with no fans whatsoever. There have been 4 games with 2,000 fans, which I'll get to in a minute. And again, not including any cancelled games. 27 games with no fans. Home wins 16, away wins 10, and draws 1. So 59.2%. Which if you look at the percentage, man, it's not that much different. Home teams are getting the job done more often than not. However, when you look at the games with 2,000 fans in attendance, and I will say as a spectator, the games with 2,000 fans felt like more than 2,000 fans because you can really hear the crowd, and it's so much better, even with 2,000, than the fake crowd noises. It's still only a 25% win ratio. But with 4 games, there's hardly a huge sample size, and you'd have to look at the matchups to say, was it a top team visiting a lower ranked team among those 4 games? But average score 21-27 with the away team having 27. This one, the average score is 24-21. So the interesting thing across both these Premiership seasons is that the home team score, excluding these ones, which seem to be, again, small sample size, home team 26, home team 27, home team 24. So the home team's always around the kind of mid-20s, whereas the away team is the one that picks up from 18 to 24-21. So at least 3 points better, maybe 6 points better seems to be the conclusion. But again, even 2 seasons or like a season and a half is still not the biggest sample size in the world. You could potentially look at the 18-19 season and see like massive change. I don't know whether it would be around the same numbers or would it be different with the full fans in attendance. Anyway, we'll look at the Champions Cup, just the pool stages for the 2019-2020 season. We had 60 games, the home teams winning 61.6% of the time, which again, it's pretty much almost the same number as the Premiership home games, right? Fans in attendance seem to get the job done. Average score 25-20, 5-point difference. Once we switch to the pool stages for the current season, which is this Champions Cup season, we've only had 17 games. So again, not a huge sample to look at, but of the 17 games played, not including any cancelled or postponed or whatever games, 8 home wins, 9 home losses. So a 47% winning rate. And like I said, heaps of different factors going on. But generally speaking, it seems to be, apart from this, if you include 2,000 fans as having fans, it seems to be that the no fans number is generally below the with fans number. But there's always exceptions. For the scorelines in the Champions Cup, 25-20 like I mentioned, and 26-24. So the no fans games have actually been pretty close. You could say that the away teams are 4 points better, but even the home team is 1 point better in those ones. They did have 3 games with, again, limited fans in the Champions Cup this season. So it was 1 home win. So like 33.3, that's an ugly 3, success rate for the home teams with the limited numbers of fans at home. Funnily enough, though, because there's only 3 games, the average score is 24-13 because the 2 away wins are really close. And the 1 home win was like 42-0 or something like that. So really, it does the average when there's a big blowout like that in such a small sample size. But anyway, away teams seem to be a couple of points better when they're not having to deal with the home fans screaming at them. For the Six Nations in 2020, there were 11 games with fans, 8 home wins, and 3 away wins. So 72.7% success rate for the home teams in the Six Nations. And I was thinking to myself, the 3 away wins, is it just Italy that's having teams come into Rome and beat them? Well, Scotland did beat Italy in the Six Nations prior to all the lockdowns. But France also won in Wales and England won in Scotland. Average score 23-16 in the Six Nations prior to lockdown. Now, Autumn Nations Cup, I've got a bit of a caveat there as well. I took out Georgia and I took out Fiji because I kind of wanted to compare slightly more apples with apples, right? Same teams from the Six Nations in the Autumn Nations Cup. Let's have a look at their results. So, Autumn Nations Cup obviously didn't have any fans except for the final, which I've also kind of excluded, but Autumn Nations Cup had 12 games which were played. There were some cancelled, and again, I'm not including the Georgian games. 7 home wins, 5 away wins, which makes it a success rate of 58.3% for the home teams, significantly lower than 72.7%, but again, it is different matchups, so read as much into that number as you will. The away wins in the Autumn Nations Cup and the Six Nations. Scotland won in Wales at the end of the Six Nations with no fans. Remember, it was at a different ground as well. So it was in Llanelli rather than in Cardiff. England won in Italy. And then the Autumn Nations Cup, England won in Wales, Scotland won in Italy, and France won in Scotland. The France win in Scotland one is interesting because that's actually a reversal. With fans in the Six Nations, Scotland beat France. Without fans in the Autumn Nations Cup, France beat Scotland away. So like a direct reversal, but again, heaps of factors at play, not just the fans, but maybe it is a potential factor. But interestingly, in the points differences, it doesn't change much. It goes from 23-16 to 25-18, so both sides go up by 2 points. The actual difference doesn't change a heck of a lot, but the results, more of them went the way of the away team. There was that one game which was played with limited fans in the Autumn Nations Cup. That was the final. It was 22-19 to England after extra time. It had 2,000 fans. It was a pretty close game. But yeah, so judging this just by this very, very cursory look at things, it seems generally with fans, traditionally, the home team is a 60% or better team, or success rate. Without fans, it seems to drop, but it can also still flirt with around about that 60% mark without breaking it. Now again, if you looked at previous years of the Six Nations or of the Premiership, you could probably find years where even with fans, teams have won at a below 60% rate, but this is just what this is. Interestingly, for Super Rugby Aotearoa, we did have one game played with no fans in attendance. It was the final game that was played. It was the Highlanders hosting the Hurricanes, and that one finished 38-21 to the home team without any fans in attendance. So, yeah. What do you guys reckon? Can we read into the fact that teams do better when they've got fans cheering them on? We've certainly heard interviews with players who say it's a different atmosphere. So I would assume it's a factor. How many points is it worth? The data seems to indicate not a whole heck of a lot, but it still seems to be worth something. I don't know. You guys let me know what you reckon. Hopefully this year or maybe next year we can get back to sports with with normal crowds and everyone being healthy and not having to worry about all the travel and all that kind of stuff. But for now, this is the situation we've been dealt with. Still not sold on the fake crowd noises, and if I had to choose that over no rugby, I'll certainly keep taking the rugby. If you do enjoy the videos, please have a look at the Patreon page. Link is in the description for that one. You can show your support for the channel there as well, or the Buy Me a Beer page, which is there as well for kind of one-off tips. But yeah, as I said, you guys let me know your thoughts. Fans, no fans, how big is the difference? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.